everyone, my name is Kelly Pratt and I'm a solution consultant with Echo Consulting. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about a really popular question that we get asked quite a bit, which is how to manage multiple projects within Smartsheet. This is something that we work with all of our Smartsheet clients on with today, and so I wanted to take you through a few of our recommended strategies and best practices for this. So as you can see here on my screen, I have a workspace with a demo environment. In this demo environment, I have 3 project examples, and I just want to make mention that all of these recommended strategies can be used whether you have 5 projects, 10 projects, 100 projects. All of them could use all of these strategies and best practices. So the first one that I want to take you through is our project intake sheet. So any client of ours that is managing projects within Smartsheet, again, regardless of the number of projects, we recommend that you always have an intake sheet. So an intake sheet, you can also kind of call it a project list. It's just a place where you can really keep all of your core project information, the name of your project description, the status, how many of your projects are in progress, how many of your projects are potentially on hold, what phase are they in if you follow project phases, if it's part of a PMO and you have programs, all of that kind of data, right? Who's the project lead and all that information. Another thing that's really important for the intake sheet or a use case, right, is a mechanism to allow you to prioritize your projects and a mechanism to allow team members within your organization to submit new project ideas that you can then review and decide if you're going to move forward on, right? So a lot of our clients will have approval processes within an intake sheet. So in this sheet, I'm just going to take you through some of the columns that we have. I kind of made mention of some of them, right? So in these project examples, we at Echo Consulting, we do many different things, but one of the things that we do is project management system implementations, or really implementations of other technology systems as well, such as Power Apps and Power BI. And so you can see here in these project examples, the project name is really Client 123, which are just example projects or example clients, right? So for us, we might include what product are we covering? What's the billing type? What phase are we in? Do we have a priority of our different projects? The different resources, right? We have project leads and solution architects, for example, the start and end date. We also would be capturing, not all this data is filled in, but we would be capturing project health information, right? So on a weekly basis, we might be sending out weekly update requests to our project leads to say, what's the health of our budget, scope, and schedule, right? And then typically we have a formula that is going to formulate what our overall project health is based on the individual inputs of budget, scope, and schedule. We might have budget information in here. This also has, these are just some example columns. Everyone's intake sheet is going to look a little bit different based on your use case and really how you manage your projects and processes within your organization. But we might have, information around who's approving it, what the approval status is, if it's ready for approval, if it's approved, if it's rejected. We also often will include project charter information. So what problem is this project trying to solve? What's the proposed solution and approach? What are the benefits, outcomes, and so on and so forth. So all of this information can be managed within the intake sheet. Off the intake sheet, we're also going to have, if you go to the forms, we have that project intake forms, as I mentioned. This is where a team member can go in and submit project ideas that may come up, which would then allow us to prioritize them against all of our other active projects. Anytime you submit a form that's connected to a sheet, it's going to add that as a row to the sheet. And we might have automation set up to notify certain stakeholders when that project gets added, and then it can follow any workflow processes for approvals. Sometimes it might be 1 level of approval, sometimes 2, sometimes 3, right? So Smartsheet really has the flexibility to meet you where you're at and facilitate whatever process that you might have within your organization. You may also have opportunities where you can link data from your intake sheet to your individual project plans, for example. So you can cell link the start and the finish dates into or from the project plan so that those start and finish dates are always staying up to date with what's happening in the project plan, what's getting updated there. That's something that we do here at Echo. So that is my first strategy that I wanted to cover with you. Highly recommend for any number of projects that you might be managing. The second thing that I wanted to cover is project plans. So of course, if you're managing projects within Smartsheet, or really within any system, you need a plan, you need a schedule, right? You need to understand what are the activities that you need to execute on and move through in order to get to the expected result and meet the expected objective. So really the main thing that I want to touch on for the project plan, this is mostly a best practice, right? Is you want to make sure that you have a consistent set of data across all of your projects. So what do I mean by that? I mean that all of your project plans or project schedules need to have the same column names and need to have the same data criteria. Now, there's a caveat here. So it is okay if individual project managers say, hey, well, I need to add this column for this, or I like to have a column for this, and I include this data in it. That's okay. We can allow flexibility, but you do need to have a standard set that has the same name to make sure that your data can roll up, right? To look across all of your projects. So some of the key ones I would say, right? So of course, task name, right? It could be task name, description, start and finish. Obviously you need those. Some people use start dates and end dates. Again, the naming has to be the same. Project or column names have to be the same across all projects. If you have dependencies enabled in Smartsheet, it should have predecessors and duration. Correct, right? Percentage complete. Status, and then in addition to having a column that is all named status, you also want to make sure your drop downs are consistent across all of your projects as well. Again, there can be some outliers here, but for the most part, you want to make sure, because then if you're looking at all of your projects across the board or a subset of projects, and you want to know how many tasks are in progress, how many tasks are not started, complete, you need to make sure that those are the same. If they're named differently, then you're not going to be able to roll up that data, or you're going to have to do some complex data mapping, which is not ideal. Then you're going to need an owner. Again, actually, typically we usually call this assigned to. In this example, I have it as owner for some reason, but you want to make sure that is the same across the board. I would say that's the most consistent set that you need to have, right? Here at Echo, we also use something called task type. So if we want to indicate if something's a task versus a deliverable versus a milestone, we can also call out phases, which allow us to provide or put in conditional formatting based on that, right? You can see it's highlighted gray, which is done through conditional formatting. We use task health. We have an at-risk flag as well. So there's a few kind of different things in there, but the main takeaway here is that you need to have consistent columns with consistent data sets, and then allow your project managers to still have flexibility to do what they do best. So that is my second item that I wanted to review with you. The third best practice and strategy would be the utilization of reports. So a report in Smartsheet is one of their assets, right? So the primary is sheets. That's where the source of data really is coming from. There's reports and dashboards. So reports, honestly, although they are noted as like a separate asset, I think of them as just a filtered down version of a sheet. So what a report allows you to do is select a data source, whether it could be one sheet or multiple for managing multiple projects. And it allows you to look at a specific set of columns that you want to see, so you don't have to look at every single column in the sheet. Right? If you're not new to Smartsheet, you know that we have a lot of helper columns and you probably don't want those on your reports. And then it allows you to filter down. So when we're managing multiple projects, excuse me, I think we have a few examples in here, but I'm just going to create a new one. So if I go and create this or click this create button and select report, I'm probably just going to do one that is already created, but just to show you an example. We're going to do past due tasks. Click OK. I'm gonna click on this. Okay, so now we're looking at source sheets. And again, a report can be to an individual sheet. You likely would have project level reports, but for managing multiple projects, you want to be looking at multiple sheets. You want to be looking at all of the project plans that you have. In this use case, all of my project plans are in one workspace. So my source sheet, I'm going to check off this Kelly demo workspace. Okay, this is a really useful strategy because when you add new projects to that workspace, they'll automatically get added into the reports. If a project is completed, you need to archive it, you can move it out of the workspace and it will remove it from any reports, right? So always just check off at the workspace level. I'm going to click next. And then here, this is where I can select my column names, right? So I want to have owner, I want to have percentage complete, really some of those core columns that I was mentioning before. Status, start, finish, creation, right? And then you might have task health. Okay, then you can filter the criteria. So for this, I'm going to filter, percentage complete is less than 1. For non-completed tasks, you can really use the percentage complete or the status if it's not marked as completed. And the finish date, right, is in the past. Oops, and I didn't click OK. So that's going to show me any past due tasks. Where's my task name? Okay, right. So the primary is the task name. I'm just going to, organize these. I'm going to put in them in the order that I want. Percentage complete status. I'm going to size them how I want. Right? Okay. And then over here on the right-hand side, you can see sheet name. Another thing that I would do when you're creating reports for multiple projects is I would group them by the project. In most cases, there may be certain scenarios where you don't do that, but it can be really helpful if you're looking across multiple projects and you want to see past due tasks and you want to know what project it's coming from. It can be helpful to group it rather than just have this data point. So I would go group. In this use case, I don't have a helper column that has the project name. In some use cases, such as if you're using Control Center, you might have a helper column with the project name. You could use that. If not, the sheet name usually works pretty well as well because typically we have our sheets named as the project. So then you can see here, it's grouped. I only have one project that has past due tasks, but if I had multiple, it would show another one down here, right? I could change this to tasks due in the next 2 weeks, right? Change my criteria to finish is in the next 14 days. Just trying to see if I can get multiple projects to show. Nope, I guess only this one shows now. But you can also, that's an example of how you can, I could have done the save as new functionality in Smartsheet and saved that and just updated my filters. So I'm going to sort by finish date, by oldest to newest as well. And that gives me the view that I'm looking for. So reports are very, very key for managing multiple projects in Smartsheet. But again, you need to have that consistent data set from your project plan as a starting point to make sure that all of your data is going to come together in the right columns, to make sure that when you apply the right filters, that it will then show the correct data set. So that first layer of having the consistent data set is really important for this to work. But reports is really the lowest hanging fruit for managing multiple projects because it allows you to look at multiple sheets and look at a consistent set of data to say, again, what tasks are past due, what's due in the next 2 weeks. A few other common ones, we'll do open tasks by health. We'll filter down to just red and yellow tasks based on our task health. And open milestones is another one. So you can see here, and this is where, here's an example of where you can see it showing the sheet name and you can see multiple projects. And it really just helps you to visualize and understand which tasks go to which projects. Awesome. So the next strategy that I want to share with you is for managing multiple projects is called a current user dashboard. So what a current user, if you're not familiar, Smartsheet provides a functionality really filtering on a report called current user. So what that means is that it can pick up on who's logged into the system and only show the data and information that's relevant to that specific user. So for example, if you are at an organization and you are managing 25 projects and you have stakeholders, and I'm a stakeholder and I might have projects across 4 or 5 different projects, what would be really useful for me as an end user is for me to be able to see all my tasks that are assigned to me across those 4 or 5 different projects that I have. So I'm going to do a quick demo of creating a current user dashboard. I'm not going to go super in depth on how to build a dashboard. You'll watch me as I do it, but just know we do have other resources on it. So we'll make sure that either in the comments or the description of this video that we include a link to our how to create dashboard, so you can always reference that later. But I will just go through a demo of creating the current user dashboard now. So I'm going to create and click dashboard, and I'm going to go current user dashboard. And I'm going to add a widget. So typically we add, a title to the top, even though it's kind of up here too, but you might just say, tasks assigned to you, something along those lines. You can apply formatting on this if you like, right? And then, so for current user, for the majority, I'm really going to use reports. You can create charts from reports, but just know that if there is no data assigned, like let's say I'm assigned to 4 or 5 projects and I have a report that's showing tasks that are past due in a chart view or something like that. If I have no past due tasks, the chart will appear broken. So I really just try to stick to reports. So I'm going to add, or I'm actually probably going to have to create a report because I don't have any yet. So let me delete this and save. And I'm going to go back to the all projects folder and show you how to create these reports that we need. Here's a just quick tip unrelated to managing multiple projects, but if you are trying to get back to kind of the workspace that you were in, you can go to File and Properties, and then it gives you the breadcrumbs of where you came from to get back to the folder rather than having to click through the Browse section. So I'm going to create a folder for current user. So all my reports stay organized. I'll drop that dashboard in there. And another quick tip is when I create a report, I usually don't like to create it from scratch unless it's the first one. But once I get my kind of set of columns that I typically like to show in my project reports, my project plan reports, I just use that and save as new. I referenced this a couple minutes ago. So past due tasks, for example, I'm just going to right click on here and save as new. I'm going to change the title to past due tasks current user. And then I'm going to put it in that current user folder. It's not showing up. Let me type it in and see if it shows up. It must not be picking it up yet. So for now, I'm just going to save it to the same place. I can drag and drop it in there in a minute. And I'm going to save that, right? I'm going to drag and drop it into that folder. I'm going to open this. Okay. And then I am going to update the filter. So it's finished in the past. See, this is another example. You can do past due based on status. It's not canceled or completed. And I'm going to add owner has any of current user. So it's automatically an option as a filter. And I'm going to click OK. I am noticing that I don't have the right column here. I'm going to drop owner. Here we go. So you can see here for me, these are only my tasks. I'm going to do file, save as new. I'm going to do do in the next 2 weeks, right? Current user, I'm gonna save. I'm gonna change my filter to finishes in the next 14 days. Click OK. Oh, so for that one, I personally don't have any tasks that are due in the next 2 weeks. Let's do save as new. We'll do one more. Milestones due in the next 30 days. I don't know if I have any criteria for this, but we'll see. So I'm going to do current user. I'm going to do finishes in the next 30. And then I'm going to add another condition for task type is one of milestone. Okay, doesn't look like any qualify for that either. So you can see if it's a current user and I don't have any that qualify for that, it's not going to show, which is okay. So I'm going to come back to this current user dashboard and I'm going to add these reports to the dashboard. So I'm going to click a plus sign and I'm going to go report, add a report. And I need to get to I probably need to do a quick refresh on this just to make sure. Sometimes that happens if you freshly create a report, the dashboard doesn't pick that up. So you just have to refresh it to kind of kickstart the system. Okay, so I just did a quick refresh and let's go ahead and get this report added. So I'm clicking on report and add report. And I was having a hard time with searching, so I'm just going to go to my workspace, current user, and I'm going to do past due tasks, current user, right? I'm going to size this to how I want. I don't need a Gantt for this view. Just going to put it full width. Right. Move some of this. And then typically what I would do is I would just right click and do a copy, paste it here and get my other two reports added. And I'll show you some important configurations for current user as well. So when I click on this and edit, I'm going to change the data source. I'm going to go do in the next 2 weeks. And then I'm going to click on this one and I'm going to do the milestones due in 30 days. Perfect. Now, the most important thing to make sure that your current user dashboard is going to work correctly is under this viewer mode. You need to make sure that for current user, you have their own perspective. So you just click on it, go to viewer mode, their own perspective. You also typically want to make sure it's opening the data source that then they can click into it and make updates there, right? So they can update their percentage complete. They can say that they've made progress or that the task is completed. So what this means is if someone else logged in, they would not see my tasks here. They would see their own tasks assigned. Again, they can click on the dashboard or on the report, and then they can go in and make percentage, complete updates to their tasks. Another really common one that we do for current user is not just for tasks that are assigned to you, but we will add helper columns to project plans for the project manager of that project plan. So that if a project manager is managing 3-4 projects, whatever it is, we also will create a current user project manager dashboard, which will then show them their tasks or things that are coming up in their project plans, not just assigned to them, but just overall, right? As a project manager, you want to know, are there any past due tasks? What milestones do we need to hit in the next 30 days? What deliverables do we have coming up due in the next 2 weeks? Things like that. And they can see, again, it's a way that they can manage all their projects across the board in one place. And then using that sheet name. So if I click into this, I think I don't actually have that column here, but what I would do is I would add in sheet name to the column. And that way, when they're on their dashboard, they can get directly to that individual project plan. Again, it's a really easy one-stop shop for them to kind of start their day with, and then be able to drill down into the details of each of their individual projects. If you want to turn a report into a chart, you do need to make sure you have summarize on. So in this use case, I would just use sheet name as a summary to count. And then when I go back to my current user, if say I wanted to show this not just in a report form, but in a chart, I could add a chart and I could use that same report for this chart. So past due tasks, current user. Click OK. And then that will show me this chart. You know, I can format it. I would probably remove the legend because it's just showing sheet name and it will automatically show me, you know, the individual project name. Oops. Right. I'll put it over here, maybe slide this back over. This project name is kind of long, so you can see the format is a little bit funky. We can play around with, like, maybe I'd actually just do this as a pie chart and I would show that legend on the bottom. Oh, nope, that didn't do it. You can also do bar charts. Again, this particular project name is long, so I can also just like spread this out a little bit more, reformat it. Like I said, we have another video on dashboards that you can check out for kind of best practice tips and tricks on dashboards specifically, but I just wanted to show you how that would function. If you are using a report that does not have any data, like this here, you can see it's showing results are empty because there's no criteria that this meets. So that I personally have no tasks that are due in the next 2 weeks. I'm going to add that sheet name here because I do just want to show you what this might look like if there were no tasks. So I'm going to do sheet name. I'm going to temporarily, unfortunately, in order to create the chart, I have to temporarily make sure that there is data showing. It won't even let me create the chart if there's no data. So I just took the like due in the next 2 weeks filter off. I'm going to come back here. Just going to resize this really quick. Copy this, paste it here. I'm going to change my data source to that due in the next 2 weeks, right? And it will show me 11 here as well. Save. So if I click into here though, oh, I don't have the widget setting. Even actually also to call out, even on these charts, you also have to have these set to their own perspective. Otherwise, you're going to see the data for the person that created the chart. So that's pretty important. And then we want to set that widget behavior to opening a data source. Okay. Now I'm going to click into this. I'm going to change the criteria, right, to finish is in the next 14 days. Right, it's going to filter that out. So when I go back to the dashboard, it's going to show like this. So it almost appears like something's broken, but it does say that all the data is filtered out, meaning it does not meet the criteria. So we usually will put some help text, like a little rich text widget that just says, if there's no data, that means you have no tasks, not to worry. So just something to be aware of, but still, again, really, really powerful to have a one-stop shop for users to be able to navigate to in Smartsheet and then be able to kind of drill into the details from here. But at least they have one place to go and they don't need to click into 5 different project plans to see what's on their plate for this week. So this is a really key strategy, very popular with our clients, and they get a lot of great feedback and use out of these. So the final and last strategy that I just wanted to mention for managing multiple projects in Smartsheet is Smartsheet does offer an add-on solution called Control Center, which is a really powerful enterprise tool that allows you to manage multiple projects in Smartsheet. Now, not everyone needs to use Control Center. It's really dependent. I'm just going to touch on a few of the high value points. I'm not actually going to demo it today. It's a really robust tool. We just did a webinar on this, so we'll just include a link in the description to that video if you want to kind of drill deep into that. But really what Control Center allows you to do is, let's say you have a high volume number of projects and you need to make changes across all your project plans. Control Center is a tool that will allow you to make changes across multiple projects with saving time, right? Otherwise, let's say you have 100 projects, you needed to add a column, you'd have to go in and manually add that to 100 sheets. Control Center will do that for you with some configuration. It also provides some efficient summarizing tools. So it allows you to kind of summarize and roll data up across all of your projects in a kind of more efficient and easier fashion, again, specifically if you have higher volume. And it also allows some automated data connectivity between that intake sheet that I covered with you at the beginning of this video and your individual kind of project level assets, project plans, CRADE logs, things like that. So that's really just high level. I'd just be remiss to not mention that because it is a tool Smartsheet offers for doing just this, but we wanted to cover some of our kind of lower hanging fruit strategies and best practices for managing multiple projects in Smartsheet. So we hope you find this helpful. Please don't hesitate to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're constantly putting out videos for new product releases for Smartsheet and just some of the tips and tricks that we learn along the way while supporting our clients with Smartsheet. So thanks for your time.